and our ability to reduce that risk subsequent to that. And I guess also your staffing resources in terms of how you can achieve this onboarding this year, is that coming at a cost of any other initiatives that we have undertaken or we're hoping to do?
Through your worship, there absolutely is a lot of I in that process currently, and with the new software, we do have enough licenses that every person in the corporation will be able to have access to the software in order to update their own budgets, provide support for their estimates, as well as see how we're doing as far as ongoing actuals to budget go and be able to provide feedback that way, excuse me. As far as the implementation of the software, we hope to do that with their current staff over the course of this summer with support with Questica. So there would be no additional cost besides what is quoted here in this report. Going forward, I think this does spread out that accountability and responsibility for budget development away from my seat. And although I'll continue to have oversight, it will not be me that is hand-bombing budgets into Excel documents and making sure that everything balances and checks each time we do an update to the current year estimates.
Carol, do you have your hand up?
No, that was my question.
That was the question. Oh, go ahead, Sunit.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. In the report, the director had mentioned that you guys are currently using Excel-based sheets, and a lot of work is done through the Excel sheets, and there's consultations with the other municipalities. Do we have any examples of other municipalities using this particular software, or are there any other options that fit our size?
Certainly. Sorry, I closed the actual report. I'm not sure if it references them, but for certain, Grey County is using the software. And although this has been on we've been looking at this product for quite some time, knowing that Grey County was going to transition to it. We allowed them to act a little bit like our guinea pig, and I waited until they had it in place for at least a year before we took action to move forward with it. Also, the municipality of Meaford is using Questica budgeting software. A staff member that I work closely with was formerly at Meaford and spoke highly of the product and has also been involved in the implementation. So we'll be able to leverage his experience as well.
I guess the last question, just for my understanding. So the amount that we are budgeting for, it includes the user fee as well as the purchase of the database. So the user fee of 50,000 would take us for how many years? And then do we see a increase in the fee?
That's an annual fee, and it's a 5-year agreement. So outside of that agreement, I do anticipate that there'll be regular indexing to the annual software maintenance fee as we move forward outside of this agreement.
And does it include unlimited users, or each time we add a user, we pay extra?
The agreement is set up to have unlimited users, so every user in the city will be able to have a license and use the software for the cost that's quoted here.
Okay, I don't think it's been moved yet, has it? No. Okay, can someone move it? We'll put it, okay. Deputy Mayor Gregg's moving it.
I will move the recommendation that in consideration of staff report CR 25-047 respecting approval of non-standard procurement, budgeting software, City Council 1 approves the purchase of budgeting software from Auna Solutions Incorporated for $325,292.46, including the city's non-refundable allocation of HST, and 2, direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement.
So good, I can call the vote. Yep, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Travis is 7, so I think there's one opposed. Oh, you're in. Okay, so that is carried. Next at 10C is a verbal report from Deputy Mayor Gregg from Grey County Council.
Thank you, Mayor. County Council met last week. Warden Matrosovs and Council acknowledged Mayor Body for the receiving of the Municipal Stewardship Award presented to him from the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council at the Canadian Nuclear Association Conference 2 weeks ago. We wondered where you were that night. You had good reason to miss the meeting. Council, attend virtually. Council approved the purchase of 3 small parcels of land, providing site triangles to facilitate the intersection improvements at Gray Road 1 and 14th Street West at an approximate cost of $21,500. Council approved the transference to reserves resulting from a $4.4 million surplus in 2024, which equates to 5.95% of the levy amount. Larger contributing items were higher supplemental taxes and lower write-offs, an unbudgeted sale of land, and the long-term care surplus, primarily resulting from increased investments from the province. Higher interest income on investments more than offset a deficit in the self-insured WSIB budget. Council supported the $45,000 expenditure from Affordable Housing Reserve to support Owen Sound's partnership with Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing, securing 3 vacant parcels of land on 8th Avenue East. Owen Sound had committed $215,000. However, the purchase price was revived to $260,000 to cover and pay out liens on the property. And 3 upcoming public meetings and open houses are May 6th regarding updates to the forest management bylaw, May 8th regarding the beaver and coyote bylaw, and also on May 6th at the county building from 6 until 8 regarding the Legion Corner intersection upgrades, which I just spoke about earlier, and the securement of land that was done, as well as the urban road transfers within Owen Sound. I welcome any questions and ask for council's adoption of the verbal report.
Any questions? Deputy Mayor, or sorry, the other way around. Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, through the mayor. Just for those public meetings related to roads and intersections in Owen Sound, just to clarify, anyone can go to those, or like is focused specifically to neighborhoods in the surrounding area, or should we encourage everyone to come ask questions and learn more?
It's open to any members of the community who wish to participate in the public meeting, in the open house, the public forums, informational forums being done from 6 till 8 o'clock.
Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? That is carried. Just good work of the city and the county of grabbing those pieces of property, because you can never have enough vacant land, and when you can grab it and be able to use it for housing, we've got property there that's ready when funding comes, and there's a plan in place. Also, it's pretty special to be recognized for the work done with the Southwestern Ontario Isotope Coalition by the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council. And there's a whole bunch of really neat people that night that were recognized, and it was nice to be part of it. So next, we're down to consent agenda.
Through your worship, on the consent agenda this evening is a report on a development charges exemption agreement for Skydev Bayshore Rental Housing, a report respecting a housing enabling water system grant transfer payment agreement, a report on the award of a replacement of water main cathodic protection, Phase 9, and a report on an extension request for draft plan of subdivision for 1905 8th Street East. There are minutes for receipt from the Bruce Gray Poverty Task Force, and business licenses were issued to Diamond Baseball and Fitness at 2045 20th Ave East, Kim Stewart and Associates at 945 3rd Ave East, and a Hawker and Peddler license was issued to the River District for 2025 special events. The last item on the consent agenda is the information package. A full listing is available at 11G.
Good, thank you. Is there anything in there that needs to be pulled and voted on separately? Not seeing anything. You've got the motions.
Yeah, I'll read the motions. I will have questions to 11A, but not that would change my vote on that. Moved by myself that in consideration of the items listed on the April 28th, 2025 consent agenda, City Council 1 receives items 11A to 11G, and 2 approves the recommendations contained in items 11A to 11D.
And all in favor? That is carried. If I can go to 11E, which is minutes of the boards from Bruce Gray Poverty Task Force. There's nothing to report from from Councillor Hamley first.
Thanks for that, Your Worship. Haven't been called that since grade school. You kind of threw me off there now. I was actually, so I had a conflict, and I was attending the county's planning proposal, so I was not able to attend this meeting. So I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. I'm glad you recognized me as being a classmate of yours in public school. Councillor Farmer, there's something you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, just going back up to 11A, which is the waiving of development charges for the SkyDev development. That clearly is in alignment with our policies, and we all know that we need more rental housing. But I'm sure that there are folks who are going to be watching or reading the news and see the waiving of millions of dollars for rental housing and ask questions about why these aren't affordable units, why there's no stipulation for us to include like a portion of that in exchange for waiving those fees. And I was hoping staff could briefly speak to what factors limit the city from waiving fees on only affordable units, or what prevents us from requiring that some of these units be affordable when we are waiving fees like that.
Kate, if you got any answer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also anticipated this question. Thank you, John. With respect to your question about the relationship between rental housing and affordability and why these exemptions are not limited only to affordable units, the exemption for purpose-built rental development is not new before council today. The city's previous development charges bylaw provided a full exemption for all rental housing that met the definition of rental without regard for affordability. It was recognized at that time, and has been discussed since, that this broad exemption may not have fully aligned with council's ultimate goal to be specifically encourage affordable rental development. Since then, the province of Ontario, through the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Development Charges Act to require mandatory exemptions for developments meeting certain affordability and attainability thresholds as determined by the province. They also introduced mandatory discounts for rental housing developments based on the number of bedrooms, regardless of whether the units are affordable. To align with these new legislative requirements, the city repealed and replaced its development charges bylaw, adopting a new background study and provisions consistent with the province's framework. However, recognizing that several developments, including SkyDevs, had already spent years planning and preparing based on the previous bylaw's exemption and had built their financial performance accordingly, council specifically added a transition clause to the new bylaw. This clause provides that any development which received final site plan approval before March 2026 and pulls building permits within 2 years of that approval would continue to be eligible for the rental exemption under the previous terms. SkyDev's project satisfies these conditions. They have submitted building permits for 3 of their 8 planned buildings within the required timeframe. The matter before council today is not whether SkyDev qualifies for the exemption. That eligibility has been established under the city's bylaw and the timelines they have met. Rather, the report presented today seeks council's approval for the term of the development completion, recognizing that a 712-unit multi-phase build-out reasonably requires a 10-year horizon rather than the shorter term normally permitted through delegated authority. So in summary, compliance is secured through registration on title. That referenced other question that you had. Eligibility is already established under our transitional rules, and the decision before council is simply to approve the term for completion, ensuring that this large-scale rental development can proceed as planned, contributing meaningfully to Owen Sound's much-needed rental supply. And since we are discussing it, I will note in the report itself an error. Under the analysis section, I referenced that the final site plan approval was received on February 25th, but the building permit applications were submitted for the first 3 buildings on March 31st, 2025. The report referenced a December date, and unfortunately that was some confusion around another development that's happening around the same time.
Further, I just wonder if staff can speak to item 11B. This is an amazing opportunity here for the city to leverage provincial funding. Well, I'm not certain this is fully provincial, but in $4.6 million in previously unanticipated funding, we are well aware of the significant long-term funding gap that we have on our books. And this extensive report outlines just how much further development could be unlocked on the northern terminus, kind of a 9th Avenue East. So I think just it'd be good for the community here to hear more about the future plans within the report.
Through your worship, This grant application, the project that's being proposed is essentially to strengthen the transportation network, both vehicular and active transportation, in that north-south corridor along 9th Avenue East between 20th Street and 23rd Street. Currently, the road cross-section on 9th Avenue is almost a rural standard at this point in time. It's 2 lanes, it's fairly narrow, there's no sidewalk in vast chunks of it. So it's underdeveloped for vehicular travel, but it's also definitely underdeveloped for sidewalk, from the sidewalk and bike lane perspective. There's 3 elementary schools in very close succession, 3 schools, one of them is a high school, I guess, but 3 schools in very close succession in that area of town. And there's a lot of student walking, commuting traffic, I guess, if you will. So we have had concerns raised from the public of, the safety of students' routes to school and that type of thing. So the other part of this project is to finish off some of the missing links of sidewalk along 8th Avenue to create a more robust transportation network for both walking students and active transportation and vehicular travel along the roadway. So in doing so, it'll improve traffic flow and improve access for 1,100 or so units of development land in various stages of the development approval process. Some of them are just sitting back and waiting for the economy to be at a point where their business case makes sense. Others are a little bit earlier in the process, but we have, by our tally, 1,130 or so units that are ready to go, basically. So we're doing the if you build it, they will come.
Good, okay. We voted on those, covered everything off. We're in good shape. We're down to 12 on the agenda, and 12A is minutes of the Service Review Implementation Ad Hoc Committee that I chair. So I'll pass the magic hammer to Deputy Mayor Gregg.
Thank you, Mayor Boddy. First item 12A, I will pass it back to you as chair of the committee to speak to those minutes.
Thank you. I present highlights from the Service Review Implementation Ad Hoc Committee meeting held on April 9th, 2025. Save and accept report 10A contained therein, which is a review of the short-term rental license program, which I'll present separately. This being the first meeting of the year, or the term, I guess, the year, I was re-elected as chair, and Councillor Kepke was elected as vice chair. With regard to civil marriage services, the committee recommends that City Council continue to offer civil marriage services, direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to update fees and charges bylaw to change the civil marriage fees as outlined in the staff recommendation number 2 of the report. Authorize the increase of payments to the officiant for after-hour weddings from $125 to $150, and 4, direct staff to provide notice of the update to the fees and charges bylaws required by the city's notice bylaw. With regard to a mobile device policy, the committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to adopt the proposed policy AF014 mobile devices, and commit to a 2-year phased approach to implementation as outlined in the report beginning in 2026. With regard to staff report respecting an agreement catalog, the Service Review Implementation Ad Hoc Committee recommends that City Council receive the report for information purposes. With regard to developing a and allocation policy. The budgeting software implementation will begin with a mirrored process to ensure consistency with the existing budgeting process, and that full implementation is expected in the next term of council. The committee recommends that City Council receive the report for information purposes. We also discussed that future updates to the fees and charges bylaw include a note respecting which changes are resultant from previous decisions of council and which changes will be recommended by staff for the first time. I move approval of the recommendations contained in the minutes of the Service Review Implementation Ad Hoc Committee, save and accept staff report 10A regarding the review of short-term rentals licensing, and can maybe answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Body. Any questions to those items? Not seeing any on screen. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And back to you, Mayor Body, for the remaining item.
Okay. So with regard to 10A, which is a report from City Clerk review of short-term rental license program, I pulled this for separate consideration because there is a part of it that wasn't approved, and it's this committee isn't made up of public members, so we're not kind of jumping decisions made. It's myself and the 3 committee chairs, so that's 4 council members. It was a tie 2-2, so it didn't pass, but basically wasn't approved on a tie. Recommendations that the committee approve, that the committee did approve. Committee recommends that City Council continue the STR licensing program. The committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to amend the STR bylaw to include housekeeping amendments as outlined in the report. Committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to amend the STR bylaw to include the posting of human trafficking information sheets while the STR is being rented. And the committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to amend the STR bylaw to increase the rental cap from 180 days to 240 days. So all of those carried. But we got down to one, which was the committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to amend the STR bylaw to remove the principal residence and rental cap requirements in the C1 and MC zones as outlined in this report, with the inclusion of any insurance requirements provided by the city's insurer to those zones. So that was defeated on a tie 2-2 and open to discussions.
Okay. Councillor Dodd, then Councillor Farmer next.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate that this section of the report was pulled for secondary discussion. When I reviewed this and became aware of this report coming through, I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised that it was coming through the Service Review Committee opposed to Corporate Services. Now, mind you, that's not a staff issue. That was a council direction that it was to come back to Service Review. I just don't know if we probably fully anticipated some of the changes that could potentially be recommended at that time. When I look at what we're seeing, and you know, you're addressing one of the recommendations was regarding mixed commercial and C1 zoning designations. And when you do pull up the map, it's a big portion of the city. There's a lot of aspects that would be included in that new piece. The one thought that did cross my mind, however, considering that there was no public members present on that committee or to provide feedback, whether for or against or different ideas, I felt that's something, especially when we look at the River District Board, who represents the River District area, and the C1 section that would fall under that would be about almost, I would say, has to be almost 80% of the C1 section is in River District. So from my perspective, I think it's appropriate to have the River District Board at least provide comment on what they see as to move forward. Obviously, the end decision's always left with council, but I think it's appropriate when we do have a representation of other members that would be affected by this decision, that they should be included in the discussion. I have a motion that I would read and would put on the table, but it's a motion to postpone. And I know if I put it now, then it would limit comment. So I'd love to still hear from any brief comments from other members of council. But my personal opinion is this has not seen public discussion. There was a lot of survey results that came in. There was a lot of internal data that was obviously considered by members of the Service Review Committee, which is important. We always try to push for the transparency and accountability of using public members and having their feedback. And I feel that this one circumstance, it may be to the credit or to the benefit of our decision-making process if we did postpone this decision until after the River District Board was able to make a comment on the report, and especially that section. And that River District actually meets in 2 weeks, so it wouldn't prolong this decision on council. But that's just my initial comments, Your Worship. And like I said, I do have a motion to postpone shortly.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor right now. So, no, you haven't moved them? Okay. Well, we should formally have the recommendations moved of the motion. We have to put the motion on the floor, the recommendation coming out of committee on the floor before we can postpone anything. But there was a question there, Councillor Dodd. You seem to be aware of why the reporting back went through service review, but I should just provide that opportunity as staff to respond to that somewhat indirect question that you led with. So perhaps the clerk or city manager would like to speak to just why that pathway.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Deputy Mayor Gregg. Thank you for that. When this first came forward through the M&P report quite a while ago now, it was recommended that this come back to service review, looking at it sort of simultaneously with civil marriages. So that's why it went that route. And there is no timing concern to this. So if it is council's wish to bring it forward to River District, there isn't a timing issue with it.
Okay, Councillor Farmer next.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would. I've got a motion. I think I'd like to add something here. As we're updating this and fine tuning this whole thing is an experiment, and I think that as we look at increasing the number of days that folks are allowed to rent their STRs, that we should also look, assuming that these are going to continue to be reviewed on a regular basis, that we should also look at an experiment of expanding the maximum occupancy by 1 bedroom to a total of 10 people. We've had no complaints in the first year, which to me says that the regulation framework is addressing the needs that were so vocal before we were licensing STRs at all. There are many houses in Owen Sound that would, and possibly even some of the STRs that we have that would have registered now, that would have enough bedrooms to accommodate that number of people. And I think I used this example when we were first talking about this, but if we cap it at 8, then for instance, my sister's family and I could not come to Owen Sound. She's got 3 kids. I've got 2 kids. That takes us to 9 people. We couldn't rent an STR in Owen Sound that would accommodate our family, let alone if we were traveling with grandparents. And I don't think that that number of people is more than what we would see for holidays in places, and that there's a potential financial benefit in having folks who are renting their STRs be able to use the entire building if that's appropriate, and also the benefit that we then see through the MAT tax recognizing that there are still limits on a change like this. So I'd like to move that be added. Procedurally, I would like guidance on whether that should come back with a postponed motion, or whether I should move an amendment to, like, have the mayor move the motion, me make an amendment, and then we follow with Councillor Dodd's motion afterwards. But I look to the chair or the clerk. I also have a question about as we talk about the River District, the report notes that there were two former STRs converted to long-term rentals, and also that there were two corporately owned STRs in the River District. I'd love to know if those were the same places, but that's tangential to my question about the motions.
Thank you, Councillor Farmer. Procedurally, right now, we have nothing on the floor. So I'm going to need someone to move a recommendation and put something on the floor before we can entertain any amendments or any postponement. We've got nothing but air in front of us right now. Mayor Body.
So, Ms. Bloomfield, it makes sense to me to move 10A report. So I will move approval of the recommendations contained in the 10A report, being review of short-term rentals licensing program.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go back to Councillor Farmer, and then Councillor Dodd, I believe, wanted an opportunity to speak to it.
Motion to amend that we include an expansion of the maximum occupancy by one bedroom, so adding 2 people with 1 bedroom to a total of 10 people.
And I'm looking at the clerk for comment.
Through your worship, or Deputy Mayor Gregg, I wonder if perhaps that should be a subsequent motion rather than an amendment, because it wasn't a motion that was specifically addressed within those minutes.
Okay, so I will circle back to that then. We've got, okay, we will revisit. Councillor Dodd, you wish to speak again. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, and thank you for coming back to me on this. I will make that motion at this point, at this time, that we postpone the decision on the STR report contained within the service review minutes until after the River District Board provides comment, and the River District to be sent to the River District Board for the May 14th meeting.
Okay, so that motion is on the floor, meaning the only part of the motion debatable is regarding the date to which has been determined or stated in the motion. Are there any questions to that? Councillor Farmer.
Point of clarification to the chair. My previous question about the STRs mentioned in the report was not answered. Can that be answered now, or would that be answered in May when we come back to this?
Well, it's external to the motion that's on the floor right now, so technically you could still raise it after we vote on the postponement of the motion that's on the floor. So I'll come back to you. Mayor Body, go ahead.
Then does that mean it's outside the postponement?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gregg, he could also make a motion that the River District Board be requested to also consider that other item at their meeting as well.
I think we'd better vote on the postponement first and then evaluate, because you are alluding to conversation that is outside of the zones, which is what Councillor Dodd is more or less referring to as part of the motion. You're now speaking to something that's citywide. So let me come back to you after calling the vote on postponement. Not seeing any further questions. Those in favor of postponing? And that's carried unanimously. Councillor Farmer, back to you.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor as chair, I think that if that as you just recognized, that if the changes I'm proposing are outside of the scope of that, we're going to see this again at the end of May anyway, that I'll save subsequent changes with the heads up that I'm going to bring that change.
I appreciate that. I think it's important. There is a very large amount of survey data that was contained within those minutes, and at least the heads up allows other committee members the opportunity to have very good familiarity with the data that we collected from the community as part of the survey engagement. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you. Just a question to the clerk. When the River District has considered this, will there be a separate report? And if so, at that time, will there also be statistics and consideration of the additional of up to 10 people?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gregg, my thought was this would just basically be presented to the board as written with the minutes as well attached, so that they can see what the direction of council or of the Service Review Committee was at the time.
So the comments from River District will come through their minutes then?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gregg, to Councillor Kepke, I have spoken with the clerk of the River District Board, and our suggestion is that it would come back through to council at the meeting following with an overview memo from her included in the agenda.
You're good, Councillor Kepke? Okay. Councillor Merton, go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Gregg. Originally, when this came before us, there was quite a significant amount of public feedback regarding numbers, and we have an evaluation of the status as it has been. However, if we are going to entertain changing the occupancy limits in addition to the zones, where or how can we go back to the public and make sure that we have given them the opportunity as well to provide input, recognizing how significant that input was in us moving forward with this and designing it in the first place?
And I think those are excellent comments, and those are comments that will be, that's consideration we'll be having when that comes back to council. Good comments. At this time, we are complete with that item, so complete with the item, back to item 12B and back to Mayor Body.
Uh, 12B, minutes of the Corporate Services Committee held on April 10th. Councillor Middleborough.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, the Corporate Services Committee met on April the 10th, 2025. It was a very short meeting. We only had 2 reports, the first of which was from the Communications Advisor regarding corporate website analytics and overview. Highlights from the report are that the city's website had 230,000 online visits last year, 61% of which were from a mobile device. The website and online city news subscribers serve as the main communications channel for sharing information with Owen Sound residents and visitors. Some new enhancements available online are Cloud Permit, DocuPet, and Virtual City Hall. The most visited pages on the site are the homepage, the Guelph Owen Sound transit page, job career page, waste collection, and waterfront camera. A new improved content management system, platform, and online accessibility module have improved the website and made sure it is accessibility compliant, and the report was received for information purposes. The next report was from the Manager of Legislative Services regarding Policy Review Project 2025 Annual Update. The Policy Review Project began in 2023, aiming to review all existing city policies and create a framework for long-term policy management and development. So first, there is an analysis by department, and then policies are scheduled into a 5-year rolling cycle for review, and those that are obsolete, redundant, or deemed to be a procedure are scheduled for repeal. From the 2024 policy analysis, approximately 65 policies relating to the city manager, communications, and community development and marketing departments are recommended for repeal due to either being redundant, obsolete, or procedural. In 2025, all public works and engineering policies will be analyzed, and 45 other policies will be reviewed by staff. There was a recommendation in the report that in consideration of staff report CR 25036, respecting the 2025 policy review project update, the Corporate Services Committee recommends that City Council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to repeal certain policies as outlined in the report, and that was carried. And with that, I remove receipt of the minutes and approval of the recommendations contained within and can take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. No, still seeing none. I call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next is minutes of community services from April 16th. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Community Services Committee of April 16th, 2025. Members approved a report regarding extended Derby parking/camping and the framework required to update regulatory bylaws, along with changes to the fees and charges for such activity and appointment of enforcement officers. The fee of $150 includes 36 hours in advance of the Derby, the 10 days of the Derby, and 24 hours following the Derby for parking/camping in the designated areas specified in the bylaw. It was noted online applications are anticipated to open on June 17. A review of the first year of implementation of the Derby parking camping activity will follow the 2025 fall fishing derbies. Members directed that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a 5-year memorandum of understanding with the Blue Water District School Board to permit public use of the Owen Sound Secondary School multi-use courts for tennis, pickleball, and basketball. This has been a long-standing partnership between the city and the board and supports the city's recreation parks and facilities master plan. An increase in the operating budget of this partnership for the maintenance of the courts will be considered during the 2026 budget deliberations. Staff presented the city's new community profile, which takes an innovative web-first approach and is supplemented with premium print materials designed to invite the viewer to spend time getting to know the city. Many local collaborators were involved in the development of the new profile during the Vision 2025 process. Anyone interested in receiving a copy of the new community profile can visit the city's website or contact City Hall, where copies can be provided. Members were provided with a review of the 2025 events to take place around the city, including the Home and Cottage Expo, midweek music concerts, TD Harbor Nights concert, Doors Open Owen Sound, Canada Day celebrations, outdoor family movie nights, and the New Year's family celebration. For more information on these events, visit the city website at owensound.ca. Staff provided a presentation on the 2024 Community Improvement Plan applications, which facilitated the approval of 11 grants, including accessibility improvement grants, 2 startup leasehold improvement grants, and 7 facade and structural improvement grants, with a total project value of just under $365,000, with a granting amount of just over $67,000. It was explained that for every $1 that is invested by the city, $5.43 is invested by the grant applicant. It was also noted that the grant can be applied for by a tenant or the property owner. The next report received was a development update, which included 2024 approved draft plans of subdivision, site plan approvals, zoning bylaw amendments, pre-consultation summaries, Committee of Adjustment applications, and 2025 anticipated applications. 2024 has seen a significant increase in all applications and processes and the development of a number of new residential units that fit all categories. It was reported that just over 3,000 residential units are currently or conditionally approved for Owen Sound. However, the actual number of units anticipated to be built in the next 4 years depends on the wide range of factors, including both national and international economic factors. The start of construction is subject to the developer's decision-making. It was stressed that the pre-consultation processes enable both the developer and staff to generally comply with timelines required by the Planning Act. The development update identified 21 building permits have been issued for the month of March, with a construction value of just under $1.4 million. It was also noted that a total of 128 building inspections took place during March. The other item of correspondence was site plan approval to permit a 94-unit residential development on land at the eastern end of the terminus of 10th Avenue East, consisting of both townhouses and apartment units. That concludes the summary of the minutes, and with that, Your Worship, I move the approval of the minutes of the Community Services meeting held on April 16, 2025, and the recommendations contained therein.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Kepke? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Last under 12 is 12D, minutes of the Operations Committee meeting held on April 17th, 2025. Deputy Mayor Gregg.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Body. From the April Operations Committee meeting, I'd like to show that committee received 2 deputations. The first was from GSS Engineering regarding the 32nd Street water main replacement. Council is aware of this project from budget. The construction project replacing 580 meters of water main is scheduled to take place during July and August this summer. The water main upgrades maintain servicing to Leith during the phase project and will include the installation of a new pressure reducing valve to connect the municipal pressure zone and industrial pressure zone. The project, which benefits from provincial housing enabling water system funding, will provide servicing for the proposed SkyDev housing development. A second deputation was from Hempson Consulting regarding the water and wastewater rate study. The updated study incorporates increasing costs, a revised asset management plan, and enhanced capital plan to maintain system operations. The city currently recovers system costs at a 52% fixed, 48% variable ratio. The asset replacement value is $972 million between $502 million in water and $470 million in sewer investment. Annually, that appears as $18 million for water and $11 million for sewer. The calculations account for a billed consumption increase of 1% in 2026 and in 2027 to reflect anticipated increased billing from new meters. The calculations consider higher annual operating budget increases in water than in wastewater. The rate study shows over 10 years increasing cumulative capital investment to 30% of the total asset management needs from the current 24%. The study indicates that to do that is an annual 5% increase in water fixed and variable rates alongside a 124% surcharge for sewer, which is forecasted to see slight reductions beginning in 2027. Owen Sound's rates would position us in a tight grouping of middle comparators just slightly at the high end. The subsequent recommendation from committee in the following report is to amend the fees and charges bylaw to include a 5% increase to water rates effective July 1st and maintain the sewer surcharge of 124%. A following report informed committee of funding from circular materials to continue promoting recycling. The agreement extends a contract ending at the end of 2025 and will fund the city 35 cents per household to offset costs of creating waste calendars for 2026. Owen Sound will also receive an extra 15 cents per household to support the Recycling Coach app, which will launch as part of the Green Bin program in May. The app will provide residents with guidance on waste disposal, covering green bin materials, garbage, hazardous waste, recycling, and yard waste. Committee is recommending to bring forward a bylaw for a services agreement with Product Care Association of Canada. This agreement, effective January 1st, 2025, has automatic one-year renewals and updated pricing. Revised pricing increases subtly the reimbursement for paints and coatings, pesticides, and solvents. And committee received a report regarding our responsibilities within the drinking water standard of care. I welcome any questions and ask for committee's endorsement of the recommendations contained within.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried, so that gets us.
And if I could just correct a slight error I made at the last council meeting, I had a question from Councillor Farmer regarding intersections, and I mistakenly spoke to 20th Street East and 9th Avenue as being reconstructed. However, in the moment, I reported incorrectly. The intersection of concern in the report was actually 20th Street and 16th Avenue, where there had been collisions and more injuries. But I had mentioned to committee that it was 20th Street and 9th Avenue, which is being reconstructed in the future, but that was not the correct intersection.
Okay, so with that, that gets us through the minutes of the 4 committees, so all of 12. It fixes the report from last council meeting. So on to 13A, we have correspondence from Grey County with regard to centralized planning model, request for support in principle. I note that it's correspondence is sent to each member municipality in Grey County requesting any interested municipality to indicate its support in principle for a hybrid planning service delivery model by no later than May 9th, 2025. So what do we want to do with that? Councillor Kapke?
Thank you, Worship. I'm very confident that planning processes in Owen Sound are well in place, and we process applications in accordance with the Planning Act in an efficient and effective manner. And with that, I'd like to move receipt of the correspondence for information from Grey County dated March 21, 2025, respecting a hybrid planning service delivery model.
And I note further in that letter that it said if we don't reply to them, then it's an indication that we're not proceeding forward. Did that answer your question? Or?
I'm only moving that we receive it for information purposes. Yeah.
Councillor Hamley.
Well, I was only going to ask, do we maybe even want to be a little more clear that we're opting out? Because, you know, I look at this and I have so many concerns, and one of the concerns that I have is if we are opting out, how are we not certain that whatever financial model that they come up with, doesn't cost, Owen Sound taxpayers paying for everybody else's planning? So that's really one big outstanding question that I would have, and I would support the motion though.
Councillor Kapke.
I'm happy to take that as a friendly amendment that we include opting out.
Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Worship. And I would echo the comments of our fellow councillors here. I think we've sat through 2 presentations with the county and reviewed some of the ideas that they had regarding this model. And I think what it came out with really in the end was, I think the county has some positives to it with their plan. I think it would be able to help provide planners in some other municipalities within the county that would see a huge positive to it, right? And we do know that employee retention is challenging in those professional sectors. So seeing, if the county chooses to do a hybrid model for some of the other smaller municipalities to assist them, all the best to them. But I would echo the comments of saying, I think we have a great planning staff here within the city of Owen Sound. I think we were able to kind of recognize that there was no guarantees that we would be completely cost neutral on this. There could still be some costs, even if we chose to go to the county model. There could still be some lower tier planning costs that would still be applied. I agree with Councillor Hamley. I think we need to be ensure that as this moves forward, that we're not paying for double planning. We have a great planning department in the city of Owen Sound that we're paying for. I don't think we should be contributing towards the hybrid model if that's the way the county chooses to go for other municipalities. I would say to Grey County and the CAOs there, I do appreciate the fact that they kind of went and has done what we have asked on many times of looking at a regional approach to service levels. So in making sure that we do give them credit that they have answered some of our calls to try to find some efficiencies with this regionalized services. I think that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that they were able to do that. It doesn't work for us in this circumstance, but I hope Grey County continues to keep that open mind as we move forward, to not just stop here. I hope they continue with different levels of service where they may be able to find some more efficiencies by going to a regional level.
Councillor Farmer.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I won't support the motion. I think that we should keep the conversation going. We heard at the most recent all-county meeting that this is not the final point in the process of service design to opt in or out. And I don't think that we have enough information acknowledging that other councillors have cited long-standing or I guess persistent questions around the specifics, and the devil is in the details. We don't know those answers yet around how all of this would work or how Owen Sound fits a potential plan. And during this term of council, we've seen the staffing contingent of planners fluctuate as a result of personal leaves and folks leaving to take other professional advancement opportunities elsewhere. The city has also regularly engaged planning consultants to take on aspects of our planning work, including the ongoing zoning bylaw and official plan updates, which are hugely consequential for how the city works. And if we've expressed concern that the working relationship between staff and various departments is one reason to keep planning in-house at Owen Sound, I struggle to understand how continuing to contract external consultants to cover the department workload preserves those relationships more than a model that shares planners across our immediate county. We've also celebrated other opportunities to share services with neighbors and have advocated actively at the county, as Councillor Dodd mentioned, to explore shared services more widely. And I think Owen Sound should refrain from opting out until we have a clear understanding of what the proposal and working arrangements would look like. And that as we consider this, I think that there's maybe a kind of an emotional trap to say, if we opt into this, are we denigrating the work of our planning staff and that department? And I think very clearly the answer to that needs to be no, that they've done great work, shorthanded, exceeded the shortening mandated timeframes. And also, there is the potential that what we have right now is not the best possible model that could be dreamed up. And personally, I don't feel like I've seen enough detail from the county to be able to weigh that question. And I'd like us to stay as part of that conversation to actually see what that would look like as they iron out those details.
Thank you. Others, go ahead, Sunil.
Through you, Your Worship, I would be in support of this motion because I personally feel that over the past years of my term on council, we have a very good planning staff. And I think Owen Sound is one of the urban hubs for all the municipalities. And given all the county interactions or the meetings that we've had regarding this planning centralized models, I think there were enough opportunities where all our questions should have been answered by now. But I am still unclear, and I think one size would not fit all. Owen Sound needs are completely different from some of the needs of our neighboring municipalities. The population is different, dynamics is different, so I don't feel comfortable. I don't have a lot of questions that are answered, so I'll be supporting Councillor Kepke's motion.
I'm going this way. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm hesitant to support the motion because we don't have all the questions answered. Like, we have no financial information up to this point, and they have given us the safety net of being able, we're going to opt in, we're going to get all of the information that we need, and then we do have the final chance to opt out when we do have all the information. I have been a huge proponent of shared services amongst the municipalities of Grey, and I think To shut it down and say, not interested at this point is going against where we want to go, I think, as a council. We've been pushing for more and more shared services with our neighbors. I think that we should keep the conversation going until we have the final information. I also worry, like Councillor Hamley here, that if we say no, we're going to keep our own department, and then we're going to be paying double because we're going to be paying Grey County fees that are paying for an enhanced planning division. So I think we need to find out all of that information and be sitting at the table and have our say before we make our final decision. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Anyone else that way? Yep.
Through you, Mayor. Earlier today, we had an education session around strong mayor powers. We're currently in the middle of shifting sands where we really don't know the impact after May the 1st on planning decisions and any other decisions that may impact our particular community. I see two parts to the request from the county, and I stand to be corrected if I don't have it right. But the first request, do we support them proceeding with investigating and developing further a hybrid model approach? That was the first request. The other decision for us is that part of an approach that we want to participate in at this time? I think learning more about a hybrid approach may have spin-off benefits for us as we review processes, and it is important not to close the door to information and education, especially as it's being developed, because there may be things that would benefit us in the long run. I also believe that we still have the option to say, not at this time. In other words, not now, but not to close the door absolutely, because we just cannot predict what may happen. I see this as an unfolding process that perhaps to make a definitive yes or no decision to opting in or out might be a bit premature. Agreeing for them to proceed with a hybrid model where the information continues to be shared with us would have a spin-off advantage, I believe, to us learning about this opportunity. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Gregg, I think you're the only.
I'd just like to comment that I'll vote against the motion. I see no harm in still continuing to get more information. In terms of the different service levels between urban and rural neighbors, right off the bat, I immediately think of Oxford County, which contains Woodstock, which is a much higher growth center being located in the 401 than currently Owen Sound is. We have lots of great activity perhaps going on. If we can just get some shovels in the ground, great news. But there is a urban center that's demonstrated that the shared service does work. And I mean, it's not speaking against staff at all. I mean, we know we've got great staff. But we have a service to provide to the community. So at this time, I'm still in favor of furthering the process and just entertaining more accurate information in terms of the best decisions that we should be making down the road yet.
Councillor Kapke?
I would request a recorded vote, please.
And I think we're ready to call the vote.
Councillor Dodd.
In favor?
Councillor Farmer.
Opposed?
Councillor Hamley.
In favor?
Councillor Kepke.
In favor.
Councillor Kukrasia.
In favor?
Councillor Merton.
Opposed.
Councillor Middlebrough.
Opposed?
Deputy Mayor Gregg.
Opposed?
Mayor Body.
I didn't make any, in favor. No, sorry, opposed. In favor to keep it going for now.
Opposed, so the resolution was defeated with 4 in favor and 5 opposed.
I didn't speak to it because I didn't think it was going to end up being a tie. The reason why I just voted that way is John just twigged in something. We brought a motion up at Grey County that was passed unanimously to look at shared services and keep looking at shared services. And we want to pull together that committee, so I don't want to send two different messages. Go ahead.
I move that we respond to the county's correspondence indicating support for the hybrid model and our intention to continue to participate until more information about the details are known. In principle, if I may.
Okay, so I'm clear on that. Go ahead.
I would request a recorded vote.
Councillor Dodd, do you have your hand up?
I did, but I'll put it down for now.
Okay, so I'll pass it to Brianna.
Councillor Dodd,
Opposed?
Councillor Farmer,
In favor.
Councillor Hanley,
Opposed?
Councillor Kepke,
Opposed?
Councillor Kukraja,
Opposed?
Councillor Merton,
Opposed.
Councillor Middleborough,
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Gregg,
In favor?
Mayor Body,
In favor.
the resolution is defeated with 4 in favor and 5 opposed.
So the result is that we are not sending the county a notice to continue in principle. Just so we're clear.
Clarification of the two motions. The second motion was that we would we agree that they should move forward with the hybrid model, but we did not say that we would be someone that opted into a hybrid model, that we wanted them to continue with the process so that we could learn. And that was my understanding of the difference between the motions. So if you could go back through that, that would be helpful. Thank you. I mean, we voted on them, they're done, but the difference was there were two options, that they continue with the hybrid and that we wanted to learn, and we also then could opt in or opt out and ask for that direction. And that's where the confusion, I think, certainly for me, lies.
Council, if maybe we could take a 5-minute break here. I need a break. So we'll call. Okay, Council, it's 7:30. If we can call the meeting back to order. Councillor Merton?
Through you, Mayor Body, I would request a reconsideration for the vote recently taken before the break.
So that's a motion to reconsider?
Yeah.
And she indicated yes. So I will call the question. We need 2/3 for this to pass. Marion?
Request a recorded vote, please.
Councillor Dodd.
Opposed.
Councillor Farmer.
In favor.
Councillor Hamley.
Opposed?
Councillor Kepke.
Opposed.
Councillor Kukrasia.
Opposed.
Councillor Merton.
In favor.
Councillor Middlebrow.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Gregg.
In favor?
Mayor Body.
Oh, it doesn't matter. In favor.
The resolution is defeated with 5 in favor and 4 opposed because we needed 6 for the 2/3 majority.
So that leaves it that we defeated a motion to not to move forward, or in other words, to opt out. Then we defeated a motion to advise them that we were opting in principle. So that leaves us in a position that we've opted out in fact, because there's no direction. So I will move to number 14. We have no motions, which notice was previously given. Sorry?
Just curious, Your Worship, we don't need to reply at all. By not indicating, that means that we're not interested. Is that correct?
Considering we just had a vote that we did not pass to reconsider, there's nothing to reconsider. We have no motions which notice was previously given. Discussion of additional business, I believe, was Councillor Farmer first.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just wanted to highlight a couple of events coming up the start of May is really busy. So we mentioned the bike rodeo already, but just wanted to highlight for folks that Sunday, May the 4th from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. is Owen Sound Partner Day at the Y. So residents of Owen Sound get access to the YMCA health, fitness, and aquatic facilities for free. And you can check out their website for the schedule of classes and activities. And on Monday, May the 5th, at the Gitchiname Wikwudong Reconciliation Garden, there's an event called Gimmick Wen Damen. I'm sure I said that wrong, but it's to mark the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit People. They're having a ceremony from 11 a.m. to 12:30, and the community's invited.
Thank you. Councillor Kepke?
Thank you, Your Worship. A question to staff on when the garbage cans will be returning to community parks, particularly the Comrade Park.
Thank you for that question, and through your worship, spring was slightly delayed this year, and we were a bit late getting the Festival of Northern Lights out. Many of you will still see the tree back here in the Market Square, and that will go down this week. Parks garbage cans will be back out by mid-May, so our apologies to people that are out there, but staff are working hard to get those cans back into neighborhood parks.
I've got you down for 3. Oh, that was Deputy Mayor Gregg. Okay.
3 items tonight. The very first one is this Saturday is the annual tree sale, Grey County or Grey Sawbo Conservation Authority, and it's held Saturday morning. Some people get there very early, and some people get there before that. But it's essentially 8 to 11, a great time to pick up some various tree plantings to complement your properties, friends and family, show some great environmental stewardship while supporting the Conservation Authority in many of its activities benefiting the environment around us. Secondly is the 8th annual film festival is coming up, the Earth Film Festival. It's being held at the Roxy Theater on May the 8th and is featuring a dramatic film, All Too Clear, this year, which is an award-winning film produced by local filmmakers Yvonne Dreber and Zach Melnick of Inspired Planet Productions. So tickets are available at the Roxy to support, again, the Conservation Authority Foundation initiates and puts on the Earth Film Festival. Always a great evening with interesting films on that night. And again, supporting initiatives in place from the Grey Sawbo Conservation Foundation, complementing activities of the Conservation Authority in the environment. And third is a question to staff. If I could just have an image put on the screen. This image was from this Saturday. And I'm going to refer to rules for flying the national flag, flag policy and etiquette on the canada.ca website. The national flag will always be flown on its own flagpole. It is improper to fly the national flag with another flag of any type on the same flagpole. So I do know that we are entertaining an update, some maybe revisions to our own flag flying policy at this time. However, instances of this are in contravention to what we have as Canadians established a national standard, a national etiquette, a national policy essentially that we all follow, that's equal and applied across the board for everyone. It doesn't initiate or precipitate any signs of ownership or occupation or any threatening behavior. But I'm wondering, a question then to staff as follow-up to, should an instance like this arise again in the future, are police services an adequate resource to be able to intervene with such a contravention to ensure that the Canadian flag does indeed stand alone? As well, we have our city flagpole beside there. But also, in terms of open, I don't want to use public spaces as the term, open spaces, perhaps corporate or community spaces. I have tremendous regard for different individuals that I see out there in front of City Hall at different times, and they may be protesting a certain cause or informing the community of a certain item. I think it is wonderful. But images like that are of concern, and we shouldn't have threatening behavior potentially on our city properties such as City Hall. So I'm just wondering, when we're updating our flag policy, can consideration be given to spaces such as this in front of City Hall as well, ensuring that it's a safe space and not having threatening behavior?
Mr. Simmons?
Through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Gregg. Yeah, looking at this image, I think it probably touches on a few different policies. I think from what I hear, you're wanting us to look at, and I just asked for council, if we could report back, we'll review. Clerks, I know we'd want to consult with Owen Sound Police Services also and some others that generally give input on use of space and flags and our communications group. But if we could have just a little bit of time and consult internally as staff and then bring something back for council to take a look at, that would be helpful.
Good. Okay. So I think next is 16, motion that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Moved by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Dodd has voted for it. Number 17, motion to adopt proceedings in Committee of the Whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gregg, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public forum, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? And that is carried. Number 18, are there any notices of motion being given tonight? Seeing none, next is a motion to move into closed session.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gregg, that City Council now move into closed session to consider A, minutes of the closed session of the regular council meeting held on April 14th, 2025, and B, one matter regarding personal matters about identifiable individuals respecting board and committee public appointments.
And all in favor? That's carried. So just before we move into the closed session, I'd like to note that if you're watching this meeting on Rogers Cable TV or the Rogers TV website, their feed will not reconnect to this meeting when we return to the open session to report out of the closed session and review the bylaws. If you would like to view the remainder of the open session, you can watch the live stream on City's Council and Committee's web page at www.owensound.ca/meetings. The video recording of the meeting will also be posted on this website following the meeting.
Works hard in physiotherapy, works hard in other therapies like speech therapy. And so I've come a long way, and like now my speech is pretty understandable. I'm now able to give motivational talks to high school students. They can hear me just fine. And so I've come a long way. I have faced many challenges, like getting used to being a quadriplegic, getting used to not having any arm and hand function, getting used to being dependent on other people to do everything for you was a really hard thing to get used to. Like I got severely depressed. Like I would cry when I would go to bed. I would cry myself to sleep. I had suicidal ideation. Like I even thought about how I would kill myself. So I've slowly learned how to overcome the negative thoughts, how to be optimistic, how to focus on the say positive things, how to do things on my daily routine to say promote better mental health. So it's been a slow progression, and like I'm still learning now. Like there's still times where like life happens and I still get sad. It's not full-on depression, but like I'll get sad, I'll get frustrated, and like I'm still learning how to deal with those things. My exercising has played a big factor into my mental health. So I've developed a really hard workout routine that I do on a daily basis. Every day I work out, say, 2 to 3 hours a day. And honestly, it just makes me feel so good. Working out and exercising just puts me into a better mood. And so it's played a huge factor into my mental health and my well-being. A really big help for me was my family support. Like my dad is the number one. Like he's become my caregiver. Like he does everything for me. Showering, toileting, and dressing. Also, I come from a very religious family. So like my faith in God, my faith has really helped me get through it too. Also helped me get through some of the worst times. Just having the faith that living to fight another day will be rewarding in the end. And it has been, because my life is a great thing now. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm still learning to maintain that happiness. And so it's just been a good progression. So I graduated from York University and the professional writing program with a magna cum laude. So that's like a special Latin designation where you finish with like an almost perfect GPA. So when I finished with magna cum laude, it was just like a huge accomplishment for me, considering my disability, considering I have a brain injury, considering all the challenges I have to face. So I was very proud of myself for that. So I'm currently in the midst of writing a book about my accident, everything like dealing with depression, my rehabilitation, making new friends, everything, going back to school. I'm writing a book about my journey to inspire people, to show them that like life can be tough. We all have so much potential for our lives, and we all just have to make the necessary choices to reach that full potential. And I just want everyone to create amazing lives for themselves. I was in an accident caused by me drinking and driving. So like while I was in the hospital, I was feeling terrible that I made such a poor decision to drink and drive. So I made the commitment while I was in the hospital that I was going to use my story to discourage other people from drinking and driving. So after I was discharged from the hospital and everything, I was connected to the PL police, where they helped me start my, I would call it public speaking, because I was just discouraging people from the drinking and driving and talking about the dangers of drinking and driving. But over the years, my motivational speaking, my presentation has come a long way actually. Like drinking and driving is still a part of my talk, but now I can talk about more things, like what I accomplished in school. So I talk about the importance of working hard. I talk about the importance of discipline. I talk about some of the gains I made in my rehabilitation because of the hard work I put in every day, to my exercising, to my training. And I'm very happy that my story and my presentation has come along this way. Because honestly, I just love inspiring people. Some of the feedback I get from these students is remarkable. Like I have students come up to me saying they were dealing with depression. They were feeling like really hard things that they were dealing with. But then after talking to me and hearing my story, it put things into perspective for them, that they think, maybe what I'm going through isn't that bad after all. The one thing I would say is, don't lose hope. Because it may seem really bad now, but one is time will heal. You'll learn to adapt. And there's lots of things that you can do still, even though you're disabled, to live a fun, happy life. And then number two is to keep working hard. Of course, like having a spinal cord injury, there's a big spectrum of what type of function remains intact. What I would just say is work hard so that you can reach your full potential of your functionality.
Oatley Vigman Personal Injury Lawyers are proud sponsors of Underestimated. If you need a personal injury lawyer, we can help. For more information, please visit oatleyvigman.com.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. From coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking on Rogers TV. Join me this fall for more interviews with our local, provincial, and federal politicians, Politically Speaking, on Rogers TV.
The Patient, Client, and Family Council is a nonprofit organization that started in the mid-1990s as a consumer survivor initiative. Amber Scott from PCFC is here to talk about her lived experience with mental health and how the PCFC advocates for change in the healthcare system and broader community. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you.
So to start, what is PCFC?
Well, the PCFC is, as you said, a nonprofit organization. We kind of play several roles. We have, we offer services, peer support services, both in the community and within Waypoint, which is one of our contracts. We also do a lot of advocacy work. It's our experience and engagement department, so we do a lot of advocating for people that aren't able to advocate for themselves and bringing patient voice forward, trying to drive some of that system change for mental health and addictions. And that's really some of the larger work that we're doing, as well as helping people with lived experience learn how to share their story, and learning some of the skills that are needed to do that, as well as giving them opportunities to do that as well. So we're an organization full of people with lived experience, and that's it. Every single person up to our executive director, everyone has their own lived experience. So
can you share a bit about that? How did you get involved with PCFC?
Yeah, I got involved with PCFC. I was finishing up my social service worker diploma, and I really, during the time that I had done my schooling was some of the time that I struggled greatly as well. And I just wanted to use the experience that I've had to be able to help other people. That really was my only goal. It didn't matter to me how I did that. And I saw this job posting for a peer support worker with PCFC, and I applied for it, and that's how I ended up with PCFC. And I'm able to use some of my experience. I have experience back from when I was quite young, so I'm able to use that to help other people. And since then, I've made my way throughout the organization in multiple different roles, and getting to use that experience in different ways, which is amazing and something I'd never be able to do with a diploma. So it's really amazing.
So what is the benefit of peer support in supporting others in improving their mental health and self-care?
Well, I think there's just, with peer support specifically, I think there's something so unique and special about being able to talk to someone who has been in a similar situation. Because it's one thing to talk to someone that has read the books, gone to school, read the books, and is like, I've read this, here, do this. This is what the book tells you to do, but has never experienced it. Whereas when you've experienced it and said, hey, this is what I did when I was experiencing a similar thing. And it's also really helpful to say, hey, I went through a similar thing and I got through it, and giving that hope to other people that this is a really unfortunate situation that you're in. It's it sucks. But you're gonna get through this. I got through it, you can get through it too. And just being able to give people hope. And that's not something that reading a book can give people. So I think that's something special about peer support, is peers meeting peers where they're at and giving them, what they need and using their own experiences. So,
what are the biggest mental health related needs you see in the community?
I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now is, right now I'm based a lot within Waypoint, which is the mental health center. And what I see a lot is people that are being discharged back into the community but don't have the support within the community, especially when it comes to like housing. Like there's such a housing crisis, even for employed people. Like there's so many employed people that like can't afford housing. And it's either you have a house or you eat. It's one or the other. It's really horrible. So we see a lot of that, of people being discharged into the community with no plan in place, or no, like, that's part of mental health. Like, you need all of these pieces, and housing is included in that. Nutrition is included in that. And when you don't have all of these pieces, how can you have good mental health? So when you're being discharged from somewhere where you're already struggling with your mental health, how are you expected to succeed in that situation, right? So it's a big issue that we're seeing, that definitely needs to be dealt with, that's for sure.
And how do you deal with the stress of the job, trying to meet all these interconnected needs where there's no easy solutions in place?
Yeah, I think something I've just learned is, doing my best, knowing that I'm doing my best to help other people, giving the resources I can give them, and knowing that that's as much as I can do. Because like I am one of those people that want to go to the end of the earth for other people, and I feel other people's pain, and I wish I could solve all of their problems for them, but I'm just, we're not superwoman, or supermen or super days, so we can only do so much. So I think that's really what gets me through it, is knowing as long as I did everything that I could, just hoping that those supports will fall in place for them.
So where should people go to learn more about PCFC, or if they're experiencing mental health issues in their community?
Yeah, I would say just reach out to us. Regardless of what you're looking for. If you're looking for peer support, we have our community peer support that you can call anytime. Like, we don't have a wait list, so you can call and say, hey, I need to speak to a peer support worker, and usually within a week we'll have you connected with someone. And if you're an organization that wants to figure out how to involve people with lived experience, we're happy to help with that as well, and guide you through that. And we sit on lots of committees as well. So if someone's ever needing, the voice of the lived experience to bring that forward, we're there as well. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for watching this episode of Underestimated, presented by Oatley Vigman Personal Injury Lawyers and brought to you by Spinal Cord Injury Ontario. Myths and stigma persist about mental health, but by learning more about them, you can help pave the way toward greater acceptance. If you have concerns about your mental health, Spinal Cord Injury Ontario has resources and supports for you and your family. To learn more, visit Spinal Cord Injury Ontario online. Crisis Services Canada is there if you need more urgent assistance. You can visit their website as well. Thank you to our guests for sharing their experience and expertise. I'm Tori Bowman, and we'll see you next time.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
This is a perfectly healthy child. What's unhealthy are birth alerts, a racist practice that may stop this Indigenous mother from going home with her newborn. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
This is Rogers TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn of thejessicaflynn.com, and our show is on a mission to unleash local wisdom for widespread impact. We are committed to inspiring positive change in our corner of the world and beyond. Today, we're exploring how one department inside of our local college is reimagining what's possible for students, for communities, and for the future of social change. Today's guest is Nicole Norris, the Director of Social Innovation at Georgian College. A seasoned design professional and systems thinker, Nicole leads a team of change makers working at the intersection of education, community, and inclusive futures. From participatory research to design-led problem solving, Nicole is passionate about reimagining how colleges can be catalysts for social and economic change locally and globally. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Nicole Norris to the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of what's a very, very busy schedule in very different time zones to do the work that you do.
I'm really happy to be here, and this is actually kind of exciting. I was really excited when you extended this offer. So
I've just fallen head over heels in love, in respect for the work that your department is doing, not just for the school community, but for the wider community. So the more platform we can give to share the story of this work, it's our honor to do so. So to kick us off though, like starting right at the beginning, what is your definition and the department's definition of social innovation?
That's a good one. So I get asked that a lot. Yeah. There's two ways I can answer that. One, I usually say it's systems change, full stop. So this idea that if in any way, shape, or form that we look at the world and some people get invited to the table, some people don't. There's many reasons for that, but are there ways that we can start looking at the world differently and bringing in different perspectives, that bring flourishing, health and well-being back to our communities, or a new type of that moving forward? So I think for me, the other way that I look at it, and I've said this before too, it's a conversation around values. Some days, and some days that can get really uncomfortable when we're discussing values. Things like, do you fundamentally believe everyone deserves a house? Do you believe everybody fundamentally should have access to fresh and healthy food? And most people might say, well, absolutely. But then you can dig a little deeper into that and say, okay, but what if somebody has addictions, doesn't have the ability to work due to mental health? Are they still afforded the same rights and the same access?
Big conversations you're having in the community.
Yeah, so that's the definition of that. Those are.
Innovation is essentially change or new and growth, looking at things differently. And so the social is looking at things differently around people. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changing our relationships to what we think is right and wrong, and who we believe gets to make decisions and who doesn't. And to that point too, like when we also, one of the interesting things about my role at Georgian, so I sit under an area called Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship at Georgian. And that actually has 3 areas where we have, our ability is to bridge working in the community on innovation, and hopefully bringing that back into the college for student learning, so that we're building new leaders of the future. We're embedding that type of thinking into individuals that are going to go out and they're going to work in our communities, they're going to shape our communities. So in that area, we have research and innovation, and their mandate is to really work and build in sort of the industry sector. So we're talking about Industry 5.0, we're talking about AI, the digital space, but also, you know, sort of different modes of manufacturing, different types of business models. We have the Henry Burnick Entrepreneurship Center, so they work in the startup space. So a lot of programs where they're working with newcomers, different diverse equity groups, or individuals that have always wanted to start a business, mentorship, access to funding, that sort of thing. And then there's us, social innovation. And so we sit in sort of the community space, working with organizations like the YMCA, working with new types of schools, new alternative schools that want to come up. Any of our community organizations that are working on the social space. And what's really interesting about that is each area has a different definition of innovation. And so this is the interesting part that I always...
You say interesting, also challenging.
Also challenging.
Yeah.
So what we do know is that traditionally, from my experience, innovation is usually owned with the idea that we're outputting potentially a commercial product, we're potentially outputting a digital product, or we're potentially outputting, you know, something tangible.
Like this concrete measurement.
Yeah, like it's producing, it's going to the economy, or it's producing a profit. Well, in community, that's not always necessarily the focus.
Right.
So
if money isn't the metric, how do you measure success?
You
and
got
innovation?
it. So what we measure matters, and you know, we can have a whole conversation about GDP and what it does matter, or what it does measure and what it doesn't measure. But social innovation is different. And so there's, you know, a huge, this idea of innovation is not new in a community. It could have looked like community development, it could have been collective impact. But there's this nuance, I think, with social innovation across Canada now, where we're really starting to define this space, is recognizing that it's different types of research, it's different types of engagement, it's trust building. It's, you're right, changing what we measure, because not everything in community can roll up to a GDP.
Yeah. So I have a question about your process. So you have a background in community-based design and participatory research. So can you talk to us about the approach of your department with that participatory component?
Yeah, so actually I spent about 18 years in the corporate world. I was actually a product designer for a long time. So I was actually a contributor to some of the waste that we see in the world. I actually worked in the technology.
Listen, we all have been, so to come on the other side, it's okay.
Yeah, so I'm a reformed capitalist.
You have to know how it works to then change it, right?
Yeah, so I'm a reformed capitalist. So just to kind of answer that question, right? So when I graduated, you know, in education, what was really interesting is I never in a million years thought I would actually be in the post-secondary sector or education, whatever. I was on a track, man. I was like business, I was design. I studied design at OCAD University twice. So I did my undergrad.
Couldn't get enough.
Yeah, I couldn't get, I loved it. So I did my undergrad and my master's there. And what was really great about that was, it was kind of the first time, you know, so how you're trained as a designer, and like this is way back, playback, right? And the emergence of design at the time was really, you know, that was when businesses were starting to say, you know, we want to think like a designer. And what they were essentially meaning was, you know, how do we put the user or the human at the center of the issue, right?
And so that's the curtain behind human-centered design thinking.
Yeah, human-centered design thinking, you've heard about it, which is cool. Like that was, so at the time I was totally into that, you know, like design thinking. But then as you realize, you know, you ask that question, well, what human are we putting in the center? And if that human is got different cultural experiences, they're not necessarily from a Western perspective, maybe it's an indigenous, a completely different worldview. How does that shift and change how you design something? And what does the designer play? So that became really interesting throughout my career and as I moved along. So when we set up the Department of Social Innovation at Georgian, I got to give Georgian a lot of credit because entering into this space by bringing in something like a social innovation or change making, you're really kind of walking into a room and challenging the status quo. So I really realized early on when I shifted, like I came to Georgia and I shifted over from sort of a corporate mentality. I was like, where did I land, first of all? Second of all, it was the first time in my life ideas mattered over necessarily profit. So that's one of the things I really liked about that. But then as I started to work in this space and say, okay, I've spent many, many years designing products, digital aspects, and the students were working, when I came, the students were working on social problems and applying design to it. I was like, we could bring a lot more structure to this and get them to really understand from a design perspective how that works. So for instance, we're sitting in this room, there's this table here, there's these mugs, these chairs, somebody designed these. So absolutely everything in our world's designed. Education systems are designed, policies are designed, our cars are designed. And at some point, somebody's made a decision, but it may not fit you.
And I think some of those designs are revisited more frequently than others. So when we're talking about systems change and social structures, when's the last time that we've, looked critically at that system? Is it serving us well? And who is us now? Has that changed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the pandemic, right? When we saw the, sort of the resurgence of Black Lives Matter movement, and we all had to take a pause. Like I like to call the pandemic the Great Pause. Where we really have to, analyze who those systems were. But to that point, like, here's a great example. Like, up until a certain time period, cars were not tested with test dummies that were calibrated to a woman's body type. So there was a time where, as a woman, you were exponentially higher to be able to kill in an automobile accident because they didn't take into account, our hip structure and our actual physical body structure in that context. And so now they crash test cars with those dummies, like with a female type dummy. Other aspects.
Things that a consumer would just hopefully assume that these are being done.
Things about women's health, or even, not even white women's health, but like a Black woman's health or an Asian woman's health. These weren't things even on the radar, and how different systems exploited that. So revisiting those. So when we think about social innovation at Georgian, and we built the department, and we're starting to build that department, that idea of participatory design is just that, right? So the designers are there to sort of hold space, or our team is there holding space. It's asking questions like, how do we get invited, not inviting others to the table?
Or inviting yourself to their table.
Or whatever that is. How are we holding space? And at Georgian, as social innovation or other partners that we work with, we hold immense amount of resources and capitals. So how do we get out of the way? Or how do we use our capital and our influence to get out of the way, or move systems out of the way, so that those who traditionally are being marginalized or are having to hack their own well-being, they don't necessarily need our help. They just kind of need us to get out of the way in some respects.
And I imagine there's some work to do in building trust of, coming as an institution with this opportunity for those marginalized communities to actually trust that you really do want to listen and be a part of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the important decisions I think we made on our team was to actually hire a social worker as one of our lead researchers. So, also approaching this concept of research differently. Research traditionally for many communities was extractive. The data hasn't been returned. It's been used to foster the researcher's agenda. And the context of where we work in colleges, when we talk about education at colleges, it's applied learning, which is experiential. When we talk about research, it's applied research. So you're working with community, alongside community. And so when we look at that in sort of a community context, we also have to recognize that in some cases we have to be much more trauma informed. We have to recognize traditionally experiences with research. You know, how do we compensate community for sharing their lived experience, if they even want to share their lived experience?
Right.
And as a team ourselves, and we had this conversation this morning on one of our meetings, you know, this idea of safety for the participants, but also safety for our facilitators. Because in order to do this work, one of the deepest things I've learned is that we can only go as far as the work we've done with ourselves. So that means that we have to look inside of our internalized racism, our internalized homophobia. We have to look at that within ourselves.
As the facilitator, as that leader of the conversation, what am I bringing to the table, whether I intend to or not? I think what Georgian is doing in this work is beyond anything that many of us think is going on behind doors at Georgian, and it's obviously so needed. So we are going to come back with Nicole, learn a little bit more about their community impact labs and the work being done in our communities. Stay tuned to Empowered with Jessica Flynn.
This is a brain in urgent need of mental health care. But because 3 out of every 4 Indigenous people experience racism in healthcare, she may not get the help she needs. Become an ally. Rise above racism in healthcare.
I'm Wendell Clark with a word about winning. We all know it takes a team effort in any sport and with any challenge. You can be a part of the winning team that shuts out impaired driving. Whether you're out on the town or just hanging out with friends, drink responsibly. Always have a plan for a safe ride home for yourself, your family, and your friends. You'll be helping to shut out impaired driving.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Welcome back to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn, and today we're chatting with Nicole Norris, the Director of Social Innovation at Georgian College. I feel like we could have our own entire show series about all the things. We're still on cue card 1, and I've got a few. So we're really just touching the surface today because there's so much deep, impactful work going on in your department with your team at Georgian. Can you tell us a little bit of the story behind Future Story and Georgian's collaboration with the YMCA?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, our department is about 2 years young. And as we were sort of...
Sorry, I didn't even realize that. You've been busy.
Yeah, so we were originally called the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation. Okay. So the work at Georgian isn't necessarily 2 years young, but the department is. And what we were trying to do is we were trying to understand in our region what would our approach be to working within community within an innovation context, right? So, you know, we could show up and be like, oh, we're going to do this, or we could go out into the community and figure out what, from our sense of place, and we have a large region, what that means. And through that work, I guess the YMCA of Simcoe Muskoka was starting to, they had established in their strategic plan, Forward Together, and they wanted to build a culture of innovation. So they sort of did their own internal work and did, you know, traditionally what an organization would do is they're starting to look at, well, what does innovation mean, right? And is it just a new product offering, or is it sort of a fundamental transformation of the organization? And to Jill Jetman's credit, Jill Tetman, the CEO, I guess they had heard about our work and the department, and they came in for a meeting, and you know, I got to give them a lot of credit. They sat down and said, you know, so this is where we want to go, and she asked a question which was really, really interesting, which I actually thought was really compelling at the time, and I still compelling, and she said, how do we remain relevant? And I kind of looked at her and I said, that's an excellent question, and I said, we'd be happy to help you answer that. However, there's 2 caveats. 1, you can't hire us. which is really interesting because traditionally a lot of community partners can come to Georgian and they can hire expertise to do the research and et cetera, and they can do that. And then it sort of becomes that partner's project.
Right.
But I said in this case, because you're the why and there's so much impact to the community, we can work together and we can answer that question together, because the question that you're answering, I fundamentally believe, is the same question that Georgian is also asking.
Right.
And what I mean by that is this idea of really what she was asking was, do we belong? Not do people belong the Y, but does the Y in institutions like the Y, do they still belong in our community?
Well, and that's the earlier part of our question of these large organizations or systems reevaluating their practices, their role. So really, kudos to her and her team for asking that tough question.
Yeah, and being brave. And so going down this route, what we decided to do was, what we understood, or what the hypothesis were, what we were thinking was, so large organizations like Georgian and the Y, like, we're massive, right? Like, we don't move quickly. People, they think, but we're a little bit of a barge, and that's cool. And I mean, we're public institutions. We have commitments to our donors. We have commitments to the public. So fair enough. But in the context of community, if you've got a need, and you need to move quickly around mobilizing, housing, or even like in the ice storm we just had. Like, when you think about what was required, there's a lot more organizations that are more nimble and they can move quicker. But they're also closer to the community they're serving. They're also closer to the problem space. But organizations like Georgian and the Y can help, right? Like advocacy. So this idea of systems change being sort of grassroots, sort of breaking up the concrete, but then also these institutions seeing that and saying, okay, can we move that? And so I always give this equation of this analogy of the story called the rebel and the maverick. And so what I mean by that is, the rebels up there busting up the concrete and they're moving the system, but they can only get so far until the mavericks inside the system are there. So you think about the maverick, walking into town, right? Whatever. But the maverick knows how to move inside the system and move the system out of the way, but they can't do it without the rebel, and the rebel can't do it without the maverick. And so this idea of belonging is okay, so institutions like Georgian and the Y want to continue their missions. They're mission-driven organizations. They're there to serve the community. It's in service, but in service to who? And if the community organizations that are out there shifting and changing the status quo are saying, this is where we need you to be in service, how are we understanding how we create this future of belonging? And that's the name of the project. And the future of the belonging has many aspects to it. And again, to this idea of trauma-informed. Belonging is going to mean different things to different groups. If you're the 2S LGBTQ plus IA community, belonging may mean love, right? It may mean access to proper health and well-being, not to be used as a political tool. If you're of the Black community, it's going to be the recognition of, the same sort of thing, the recognition that that's a whole human in front of you, and they can't change the color of their skin. So how are we showing up? And what are we doing to create that belonging? Because regardless, everybody's hacking their well-being in the way that they need, and we need to understand, because how they're shifting and changing and getting their well-beings met, that's innovation. They're the innovators. And what we have to do is recognize that's how they're shifting and changing for their well-being, and that's who we have to become for them.
So again, we have to have a whole other episode, but I'm really interested in asking, with the final 5 minutes that we have left, the fact that Georgian is an educational institution, can you tell us a little bit about, learning more about your vision of what is the role of colleges in communities? Is it changing? Or was it always there and we're just not aware of this kind of work?
I mean, I think that's a whole episode unto itself. Just because of the role that education plays in so many factors of our society.
Well, and all of this work that you're doing is then being woven into the experience of your Georgian students as well. So they're graduating with this way of thinking and operating as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, so Georgian is the first and only Changemaker college. So that we join a global community of probably 40 to 50 institutions around the world who have committed themselves to building sort of change-making and social innovation competencies within their faculty, their students, their staff. It's the idea of graduating future change makers and change-making from the perspective of the lived experience. And so to that point, there is a fundamental difference between a college and a university. And they play different roles. One's not better than the other. They just play different roles in our communities and our societies. And particularly community colleges were designed to support the local workforce, to support the health and well-being, more to search, sort of more social determinants of health. And so that's the role we play. That's the applied learning. We work with partners. Our research is developed in combination with partners. Our faculty are not like a university faculty. Part of their job is to do research. A college faculty member's job is to do applied learning, and in order for them to do research, we have to find money for them to do that. So they're not paid to do research. And so the idea is that local industry and community can tap on our faculty who are plumbers, there are business people, but they have industry experience, and now they've come in, and our faculty are some of the most talented people because they are working faculty in a lot of respects.
And really passionate and rooted in their communities.
Very
right?
much so. And we have everything from liberal arts faculty who are passionate about communications and media and all those sort of things, right through to our skilled trades faculty who are working electricians, and all of them are there just like me. Like I said, I've come out of 18 years of corporate. Why did I land in an educational institution? Because to me, the idea of youth and education and this idea that knowledge and education it's a lifelong journey. So I'm here because the ideas matter, and I'm here because the impact matters. And I would probably say that 90% of our faculty, that's their same vision.
Yeah, incredible. And with the final bit of time we have here, and it's really short, for viewers watching who are not necessarily students or faculty, how do they connect with this kind of work, whether it's reading about it or exploring change making for themselves as individual humans?
Yeah, so I would say at this particular point in time, if you want to learn more about what we're doing and what the Y is doing, follow us on social media. We have Social Innovation at Georgian on LinkedIn. Follow the YMCA's channels. The other parts of this too is if you feel compelled, there's lots of opportunities to donate scholarships and funding. The college is always looking to get diverse students involved. Sometimes there's barriers in that way. So just even the idea of considering where you want to put your money in terms of that, or even just doing reading and finding more about what we're doing. We do have some infrastructure that we've started to build with the Y at our local libraries, at the Barrie Library, the Ennisfell Library. These are called Community Impact Labs, and we can talk more about those, but they're places where beyond the educational experience, if you want to make a change in your community, democratizing and making accessible those tools that can support system change.
And these are some tangible tools in and around the local community. So unfortunately, we just got there. We have to wrap up, but do stay tuned for another episode of Empowered with Jessica Flynn and Nicole Norris, because we have so much more to talk about with these community impact labs and all of the incredible grassroots, boots on the ground work that our amazing Georgian College is doing. So thank you, Nicole, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time on Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn.
connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hi, I'm Lynn from Third Eye View, and welcome to a brand new season that we're looking forward to. We have some return guests and some brand new guests. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your summer, stay safe.
In baseball, there's nothing more important than making it home.
George Springer has tied the game.
Doesn't matter how you get there.
It's gone!
But I do it with style.
Boy, has he got some kind of power.
And a little swagger, too.
Because no matter where you happen to be,
What a play!
there's only one place.
Got it!
Jays fans call home.
Sportsnet. Sportsnet.
Sportsnet.
Sportsnet, home of the Blue Jays.
You're watching Rogers TV.